Have you ever caught yourself wondering if the person who hurt you ever lies awake replaying what they did? Avoidant people may feel pain and regret after losing someone, but they often suppress emotions, distance themselves, and avoid vulnerability. Their silence does not always mean they never cared. The focus should be on healing, self-worth, and reclaiming your peace instead of seeking proof from their actions. So instead, they live trapped inside their own pride, pretending everything is fine while quietly drowning in everything they refuse to admit. But while they stay buried under that truth, you get to rise above it. Their silence was never a reflection of your worth. The pain they caused you says far more about their own limitations than it ever said about your value. You did not break them. They were already struggling long before you arrived. Your love did not fail. It simply reached a heart that was not capable of holding it. That does not make your love weak. It makes it sacred. Your ability to feel deeply and to love honestly is your greatest strength, not a flaw. Not everyone is capable of meeting you at that level. But the people who cannot are not a reflection of you. You are not someone to regret. You are someone worth remembering. Even if they never say it, even if they are incapable of saying it, they carry the weight of losing you somewhere inside. They live in a kind of emotional numbness, convincing themselves that everything is fine, but shame has a way of slipping through the cracks eventually. Their body still remembers the way their chest tightens when your name comes up. The heaviness that appears in otherwise peaceful moments, the hollow ache of missing something that was real and irreplaceable. They know it, even if they never speak it aloud. They hurt someone who truly saw them, and that kind of truth does not simply vanish. Shame carries a heavier weight than guilt does. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am the mistake. Avoidant people often live under that second belief. They push people away because being truly seen feels unsafe to them. That shame did not begin with you. It existed long before you ever entered their life. It simply woke up again inside the closeness of your love. When you offered them real intimacy, it brought their old pain into the light. That is exactly why they ran. That is exactly why they hurt you the way they did. Because admitting the truth would have meant finally facing themselves, and that felt unbearable. Avoidance is not actually peace at all. It is a lockdown. When someone like you shows up, steady, loving, fully present, it exposes everything they have been hiding. So they build walls around themselves and call it strength. They disappear and call it clarity. But somewhere inside, something aches. Something quietly whispers to them that they lost something that was genuinely real. That shame stays with them long after you are gone, following them through every quiet night, behind every forced smile. But none of that is yours to fix. You cannot save someone who keeps running from their own reflection. You cannot earn love from someone who believes deep down that they are unlovable. Their healing belongs to them. Yours belongs to you, and yours is about rising, not rescuing. Stop blaming yourself. Stop wondering whether you were too much. You were simply what real love looks like. Authenticity tends to frighten people who do not feel safe inside their own skin, so do not carry their pain for them. Do not mistake their distance for maturity. You did not fail in this. You grew. You outgrew someone who was too afraid to face themselves honestly. That growth is your freedom. That is how you take your peace back, quietly and powerfully, without needing anyone's permission. They will pretend the connection meant nothing to them. They will act like walking away was effortless, but that is only armor. Admitting what they actually lost would shatter the illusion of control they depend on. The deeper the impact you had on them, the harder they will work to downplay it. That is the avoidant paradox in action. The more they truly care, the further they tend to run. They may tell you that you were too emotional, but those words say far more about their own fear than they say about you. They needed space, not because you were wrong, but because they were not ready to meet the depth you offered. When love reaches a heart that is still wounded, fear tends to speak louder than connection does. They tell themselves they are better off calm and alone, but your presence still lingers somewhere in them. They do not forget the person who made them feel both safe and exposed at the same time. That mixture of peace and fear becomes their own quiet punishment. You were never asking for too much. You were simply asking the wrong person to meet you there. Someone who has not confronted their own pain cannot meet you at the depth you deserve. You were light appearing in their darkness, and when you offered warmth, they flinched away from it instead of stepping into it. Do not mistake their distance for strength. They are not ahead of you in any way. They are stuck. They live inside a belief that safety only exists in isolation. You are not broken. You are awake. You faced real pain and chose to heal from it instead of hiding from it. You did not turn cold. You grew wiser. That is your evolution, not a defeat. And even though they may appear calm on the surface, somewhere underneath they feel things they will never admit out loud. They remember your kindness, your eyes, the faith you had in them, the way you made them feel truly seen after years of emotional numbness. Those memories did not die. They simply buried them under noise and distraction. But truth has a way of surviving anyway. Avoidance does not erase pain, it only hides it temporarily. They do not move forward with real peace. They cope through distraction instead. The longer they keep pretending, the more the past presses in on them from every direction. It slips through in songs, in dreams, in sudden silence. They do not talk about any of it, but they feel every bit of it. That ache is simply what they never allowed themselves to heal. They once believed detachment was a form of power, but when your absence grows louder in their life than your presence ever did, that illusion finally shatters. Reality sets in. It is not the conflict itself that haunts them the most. It is knowing they were loved by someone who truly saw them, and they pushed that love away anyway, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. That is the emotional cost they never fully anticipated, the pain of watching themselves destroy something real. When they finally understand that nothing else compares to what they had, it hits them hard. It was never you who lacked anything, it was them. They chose control over real connection, silence over honest truth. Meanwhile, you have been the one rising and healing this entire time. You faced exactly what they avoid, and that is what makes you powerful. Your growth reflects everything they were too afraid to become. You did not just survive what happened, you transformed because of it. Your light no longer waits for anyone's permission to shine. You have returned fully to yourself, whole and free. Whether they ever come back or not does not actually matter anymore. The real win was never their return. It was always your peace. They feel your silence far more than they will ever admit. Avoidant people expect to be pursued. They expect you to explain yourself, to chase after them. But when you stop doing that, when the phone stays quiet, it disturbs something in them. Your stillness disrupts the comfort they were relying on. It forces them to finally sit with feelings they have buried for a long time. They start to feel the real cost of what they lost. They may misread your peace as rejection, but deep down it touches the exact wound they have been avoiding. The connection did not end because you stopped caring. It ended because for the first time you stopped abandoning yourself to keep it alive. Now they sit alone with the choices they made. Avoidant people do not miss you the way other people would. They will not send messages or cry themselves to sleep over it. Instead, they miss you in fragments, in sudden quiet moments, in familiar scents, in the empty spaces of an ordinary day. When it does hit them, they will not show it outwardly, but they feel it internally. The weight in their chest, the memories that surface unexpectedly, the wish that they could reach out and simply cannot bring themselves to. Pride keeps them frozen in place, but their heart still remembers everything. That is exactly where your own power begins to bloom. Not in revenge, but in peace. You no longer chase after something that keeps hiding from you. You did not lose them. They lost their access to you. Healing teaches you to stop fighting for people who are afraid of real connection. They may never say the words "I miss you." They may never admit that you mattered, but their silence already says enough on its own. Yet your strength no longer lives in whether they acknowledge any of this. Your strength lives in your healing, in your peace. Choosing yourself over and over again is where your real power comes from. Let your silence speak louder than pleading ever could. The greatest kind of strength is living as though you never had to prove your worth to begin with, because you have already become unforgettable. Not because they lost you, but because you outgrew their fear entirely. They see your glow now. They notice that your light no longer bends for anyone. They will not say it out loud, but they feel it. They assumed you would orbit their absence indefinitely, but you did not. You evolved instead. You healed without waiting for their permission. That quiet transformation shakes the illusion they built for themselves. They do not always come back with words. Sometimes they come back simply by watching from a distance. Every glance is a reminder of what they were unable to hold on to. Your healing becomes a mirror to their own stagnation, and that contrast burns them from the inside. While you move forward in peace, they remain trapped inside their own avoidance. They may look calm on the outside, but internally they are haunted. Watching someone heal from pain you caused them is its own quiet form of suffering. They wonder whether you still think about them, whether you have truly moved on, whether they have simply become a lesson in your story now. They still care, not because the love disappeared, but because they know deep down they could have been more than they allowed themselves to be. Let them sit with that truth. Let them sit with the choices they made. This is not punishment. It is simply the natural consequence. When someone chooses fear over love, distance over honesty, this is the outcome that follows. They do not get to walk away and still hold on to your energy afterward. Your progress was never meant for them. It belongs entirely to you. You no longer shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's limitations. You owe no one replies or explanations anymore. Your peace already says everything that needs to be said. Your silence is not bitterness, it is clarity. Let them wonder. Real healing does not chase anyone down. It stands tall on its own. You became unreachable to someone who once took your love for granted, and that truth echoes long after your name has faded from their daily thoughts. Some mornings they wake up with an ache they cannot quite name. Not sharp, but steady and persistent. That emptiness is you, not your physical presence, but your peace. The patience and calm they once felt whenever they were near you. They assumed they would simply move on, but what they pushed away instead settled into permanent regret. They wanted space, and that space eventually became loneliness. They thought you would come back eventually. Instead, your silence became your strength. They assumed the old cycle would repeat itself. You broke it for good. You are no longer available to absorb their chaos, and that is exactly where their discomfort begins, forcing them to finally face what they caused. They feel it when laughter suddenly feels hollow, when new people feel unfamiliar and disconnected. They come to realize that nothing fills the space you left behind. They will not admit it out loud, but they know it is true. Vulnerability still feels like weakness to them, but somewhere underneath, they are haunted by the question of what if. And sitting at the very center of all of it is your absence. But you are no longer waiting around for them. You have turned inward, choosing peace over pain every single time. You have stopped searching for closure through apologies that may never come. You have learned that real closure comes from protecting your own heart instead. Let them sit with their own silence. Let them carry the full weight of what they lost. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your growth. You do not need to prove a single thing. You were enough all along, and you still are. Your healing no longer depends on their regret. It has become entirely your own journey now. Every step you take away from confusion is another step deeper into your own power, the kind of power they can sense but will never be able to touch again. They may wish they could go back and undo it all, but by the time they are finally ready, that door has already closed. Not out of hatred, but because of healing. You have outgrown the version of yourself that once needed their approval. You have learned that peace is not found in being chosen by someone else. It is found in choosing yourself first. They assumed that ignoring the wound would eventually make it disappear, but it never actually does. The wound stayed hidden beneath the surface, and the longer they avoided it, the more it quietly festered underneath. You were never just another person passing through their life. They understand that now. You were a mirror, reflecting back the parts of themselves they kept hidden, the tenderness underneath their armor, the fear behind their silence. That reflection frightened them, so they shattered the mirror instead of looking into it. Now they live surrounded by fragments, pretending none of it hurts. They feel the emptiness, but they will not speak it out loud. So instead they perform, they distract themselves, they act as though everything is fine. But when the world finally goes quiet around them, that emptiness returns. They try to fill it with other things, but nothing ever quite fits, because what they actually lost was not just love. It was safety, honesty, and the peace of being truly seen by someone. You no longer look for clarity from someone who lives inside their own confusion. You no longer beg to be understood by someone who never actually listened to you in the first place. That is your shift. The moment you stopped shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's shadow was the moment you finally showed up for yourself. You gave love freely. Now you are releasing it without bitterness attached. Let them sit with what they cannot name. Let them feel what they cannot fix. Your silence is not emptiness. It is healing in motion. While they carry the memory, you carry the growth. You keep moving forward, not because they never mattered, but because you finally do. Sometimes they think about reaching out. They imagine typing the message, explaining themselves, apologizing for everything, but fear always stops them before they can. Fear of rejection, fear of finally being seen, fear of admitting they lost something that was truly real. That hesitation has become their own prison. They hide behind pride while you continue to rise above it all. You are becoming someone they no longer recognize. Pain did not harden you, it woke you up. They feel that distance now, and it stings. They never actually believed you would move on for real. They had grown used to relying on your softness, but healing taught you where your limits should be. Love without respect is not love at all, it is destruction. And now the energy they were feeding on is simply gone, not out of anger, but out of peace. Avoidant hearts crave safety, yet they never learn how to actually build it for themselves. So when they finally find it, they test it, they break it, and then they mourn it quietly afterward. They want closeness, but they fear it at the same time. They long for love, yet they feel unworthy of receiving it. That internal war never truly ends for them. You were never their enemy in any of this. You were their mirror, but their fear was never yours to heal, and their silence was never yours to solve. You are not here to fix them. You are here to actually live your life. You did not fail by loving them the way you did. You only fail if you keep waiting around for something that is not coming. Let them sit with what they created for themselves. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Your worth is not open for debate. You are no longer searching for closure. You have become your own closure instead. You are no longer looking backward. You are moving forward. The person you are becoming does not owe anyone an explanation. Let them feel what real loss actually means. You do not belong to them. You belong to yourself. That truth is your freedom. They carry a quiet conflict inside themselves. Part of them misses you. The other part is terrified to admit it. Admitting that they miss you would mean admitting they were wrong, and so they keep running instead. They fill the silence with distractions, but nothing ever replaces something that was genuinely real. They walk through life half awake, not because they do not care, but because caring terrifies them. But surviving is not the same thing as truly living. Eventually the truth breaks through anyway. The silence they built is not peaceful. It is empty. They laugh with other people but feel nothing behind it. They remember your calm, your presence, and slowly realize that no one else gives them that same sense of peace. But by the time they reach that realization, you have already risen far beyond it. You turned your pain into power and your confusion into clarity. You no longer wait around for messages or apologies that may never arrive. That chapter has closed with the truth fully intact. You deserve real depth, and their fear was never your responsibility to carry. The power now belongs entirely to you, not loud, but steady and unwavering. You stopped hoping they would eventually change. You became exactly who you were always meant to be, whole and certain of yourself. Let them face the mirror of everything they lost. Their pain belongs to them alone. You have stepped fully into your own life now. You do not need them to remember any of it. You remember yourself, and that is enough. They believe you have forgotten simply because you no longer speak of it. But healing is not the same thing as forgetting. It is remembering without carrying the pain anymore, and that is real power. They once mistook your silence for weakness. Now it has become your language, spoken fluently and without apology. You have learned that love should never cost you your own peace. You have stopped merely surviving. You are rebuilding instead. They feel that shift in you. You are not who they once knew. You have returned to your true self, the version of you that never needed to prove its own worth to anyone. That return is your own quiet revolution. They may still miss you, not the specific moments necessarily, but the feeling of being truly seen. Yet pretending it does not matter never heals anyone. It only deepens the loss over time. You have let go, not because none of it mattered, but because you matter more than any of it now. In choosing yourself, you rewrote your own ending. You no longer wait around to be rescued by anyone. You walk forward with a heart that you rebuilt entirely on your own. That kind of strength does not chase anyone down, and it does not explain itself to anyone either. It radiates quietly and confidently on its own terms. They will feel it eventually, not because you want them to notice, but because peace always echoes louder than pain ever could. They wanted you to need them because that gave them a sense of control. But once you stopped needing that from them, their illusion collapsed entirely. You did not stop caring altogether. You simply learn to care for yourself first. Avoidant hearts believe that space equals freedom, but what they actually find instead is emptiness. They push love away in an attempt to feel safe, and they end up completely alone instead. Once the noise finally fades, regret moves in to take its place. They do not miss the attention you gave them, they miss your actual presence. They may try to replace it with something else, but they never really can. You were never just someone passing through. You were their sense of calm. That kind of safety does not simply vanish once it is gone. It lingers quietly in the background of their life. You no longer carry any of that as a burden. You carry it instead as proof of how deeply you are capable of loving. Your love always had real weight to it. You left behind an imprint, not a scar, and now you protect that depth carefully. Not everyone deserves access to your soul anymore. Let them sit with the silence they created for themselves, not as revenge, but simply as truth. They did not just lose a person, they lost someone who chose to stay even when things became difficult. That kind of loss does not fade with time, it only sharpens. You now live on a higher plane, built from awareness and genuine peace. You do not chase love anymore, you attract it naturally instead. That quiet glow, that inner strength, that is your true reward. They feel your silence now, and it is no longer just quiet. It has become a consequence of their own choices. They assumed you would orbit around their absence forever. Instead, you have gone completely still, not out of revenge, but out of real peace. And peace turns out to be the loudest sound they will ever have to hear. They underestimated your silence entirely. They believed that distance would set them free. Instead, that same space only forced them to confront their own emptiness. They expected you to crumble under the weight of it all, but instead you rose higher than before. You became someone they never anticipated, calm, grounded and whole. Pain taught you wisdom along the way. You learned that closure comes from boundaries, not from words spoken by someone else. Healing comes from refusing to reopen wounds that have already begun to close. You stopped chasing potential in people and started living fully in the present instead. What they once labeled as too much will one day be exactly what someone else calls everything I have ever wanted. You no longer beg for the bare minimum from anyone. You no longer silence your own truth just to keep the peace, because peace that costs you your voice was never real peace to begin with. It was simply control disguised as calm, and you have outgrown that entirely. They will hide their regret, but silence cannot erase it forever. Losing someone who loved them honestly leaves behind an echo that never fully fades away. You, however, no longer echo anything from that chapter. You radiate instead. said, you live fully, you love fully. You found real freedom the moment you stopped needing to be understood by someone incapable of understanding you. You no longer chase love. You have become love itself, not for their sake, but for the sake of the wholeness you have finally become. And that, in the end, is your forever freedom.